So I deal with a lot of clients that may have had an injury. Maybe they currently have an injury. Maybe they came back from an injury. We're not really talking about injuries in the gym, although, those things can happen. But really what we're talking about is injuries that have occurred outside of our walls, right? So maybe it's a workman's comp case. Maybe it's someone who had a rotator cuff repair years ago and then over time became inactive. Or maybe they never even had it repaired. And so they injured something, but they never really got the surgery, or maybe they never even did some physical therapy. And so they come to me, and a lot of people do this, right? A lot of people that come through our doors have something going on. And so I end up with them a lot, and it's because I have a background in athletic training. That's what my degree is in. So I was educated in injury evaluation, assessment, diagnosis, and then treatment. And then after college, I actually worked for a company that had a physical therapy clinic as well as a fitness center. So I was able to pursue my fitness goals as a trainer, but I also worked with clients on the physical therapy side. I worked with youth athletes from the high school, junior high and high school level. I worked with older adults. I worked with people with knee replacements and shoulder replacements, all of it, right? And so then one of the things I did was I activated them into fitness programs. And it was a great business plan for my previous boss, because we would take clients from an injured state or a treatment state and then take them into an activation plan for their fitness to continue on getting stronger, continue on with their exercise protocol, maybe from their home exercises. And so then I would actually start to work with clients in a or in a personal training level that would come out of that care. And so, but anytime we're coming out of something from an injury or an issue, or maybe something that we had pain with over time, is I use a kind of a philosophy I have around how we know we're doing okay or how we're progressing in our pain or in our discomfort. Now, there's a principle out there. If you would go back and look at like a personal training book, or like where there's some principles out there, it's called the FITT Principle. And it was a way to change up cardio programs for a client. So it was, and the FITT Principle was an acronym for frequency, intensity, time, and type. And over the years, maybe I used that principle years ago when it came to cardio training, but I actually modified that to discuss pain with clients. And the way I talk about this is with clients, and especially when they're dealing with pain, is we talk about those 4 items: frequency of pain, intensity of pain, time, how long does it stay around, and the type of pain. And so that is a way for me to gauge and assess how someone's doing in their progress, especially as we reintroduce exercise, or we introduce exercise for the first time, or we transition them from a therapeutic state into an exercise state. And so I talk to clients a lot about this is, hey, how's everything feeling? How's the pain? And they might say, oh, I'm pretty sore. Okay, well, how frequent are you painful? Did it go from being painful every day to now it's every other day? Or now it's maybe only painful after a few days of exercise? If the frequency has changed and gotten and decreased, then I believe we're moving in the right direction. The intensity of pain. Maybe you've been to the doctor before and they talk about the pain scale, right? From 1 to 10, where are you at on the pain scale? 1 being very little or none at all, to 10 being I need to go to the emergency room, right? Separate story about my daughter. We asked her about like how bad something hurt, and it was like an ankle sprain that she might have had. And she's like, it's like a 9 out of 10. I'm like, your ankle should be falling off right now. So that was her assessment of her pain. We didn't quite maybe educate on where that pain scale was, right? I was like, we have to go to the hospital then if you're a 9 out of 10 on this. But that being said, what's the intensity of the pain? Did it used to be a 7 and now it's a 4? Like, that's progress, right? We're winning there. It doesn't mean the pain's gone, but if the intensity of that pain has decreased, then we're moving in the right direction. The time. How long does the pain stick around? Does it come on in the morning, but by noon it's gone because you've moved and you've gotten warmed up and you've gotten some activity in? Or does it stick around for 3 or 4 days? How long does the pain last? And then lastly, the type of pain. There's a lot of differences between pain, and sometimes when we start, especially when we start getting people going in a new exercise plan, or maybe they've never done exercise before and so they don't know what it's like to be sore. Soreness from muscle working is one thing. Painful like a knife is another thing. Radiating pain is a different type of pain. A dull ache is a different type of pain. What's the type of pain? Did it go from being like a knife in your shoulder to now it's more like a dull ache? Did it go from being really painful in the low back to a tingling or a numbness down the leg? Like, those are types of pain that differ, and those start to determine how we're moving along in our progress. And so I use that principle a lot. And so the other thing I'll say is that if you're ever coming back from an injury or an issue, or maybe you're moving from I was in a surgical situation, I went to therapy, and now I'm trying to stay active, and so I go into a fitness program, whether that's with a coach or not, or without a coach, following this principle of how frequent is my pain, how intense is my pain, how long does the pain stick around, and what type of pain am I having, can let us know if on the scale, are we regressing or are we progressing? And then the last thing here is, never believe that you're going to be on this linear progression of improvement when it comes to coming back from an injury or an issue. More than likely, you're going to take a couple steps forward and you're going to take a step back. Okay, it is not going to just constantly go up or constantly go forward. But as long as on the longer trajectory, we are still moving forward, it doesn't mean we're not going to have bad days. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have an issue pop up that we need to work around. But as long as you're still taking steps forward, even when we take a step back, if we can then the next day take a step forward, we're doing okay. So again, I think this is really important because very few people come to us without any issues, okay? And so when you have issues, I think it's also important to be educated or be knowledgeable on how to navigate those issues and making sure that you're not making things worse, but that we're progressing you down the right path to a pain-free relationship with your exercise and with your daily activities. I hope this helps. And if you have more questions, please feel free to drop a note to me, and I'd be love to answer more questions about pain and how we work with clients when it comes to getting through issues. Take care.